Greetings, Novians, and welcome to episode 6 of Ask Aphelia, a Nova Court Q&A where we answer your dual universe gameplay questions. Are you ready to get started? Let's go. Question 1. I just finished the first-time user experience. What should I do next?
Well, at the end of the FTE, Aphelia sends you to a screen in your outpost, and on the screen are a whole bunch of suggestions of what you can do. Imagine yourself asking me personally, what do I do after I finish the FTE? Well, that screen is me answering that question. Maybe a slightly less snarky answer would be, what would I do? Personally, if I finished the F2E, I would collect the ore that my mining unit picked up. I would go sell that. I would buy some materials, maybe start building things on my outpost. I would also, suggest that you take the other tutorials to get to know the game. Lots of players say you should learn about talents. And the last great thing you can do after you finish the F2E is just, find some people, join an organization, and they will certainly point you in the right direction.
Question 2. Could you please add a cooldown for siege warfare after a successful defense?
Yeah, so something that's important to talk about in regards to a cooldown like that, right, is we want to be careful about the weaponization of the timers themselves, right? Because we know how this works. Attackers will poke and they'll force lockdowns and they'll force timers. And a lot of these attackers will never really have the intention of committing to the second part of the attack, to the final attack, right? Except on the other side, defenders, because it's their base and it's their plasma and it's their extractors, they will be forced in a way to form their defenses, even if, the attackers have no intention of coming, because that's not really information that they have access to, obviously. So, even if they had access to that information, you never know what, some other opportunistic group could come along and see that there's a vulnerable station and decide to attack it. And so the defenders always need to be at least somewhat prepared to defend their base. So we want to be careful with attackers using the lockdown mechanic as a wear and tear mechanic on defenders, essentially. We don't want just constant lockdowns and not create any actual fights. So we have to be reminded that ultimately the goal with plasma, right? There's the resource portion of plasma, which is good. But then there's the control portion of the alien space core, and that's we're trying to create an incentive for conflict. And we definitely want to avoid situations where the best strategy or one of the best strategies is to not fight and just sort of keep poking away at the defender's patience until they get tired or until they burn out. So when we talk about some sort of cooldown, some sort of invulnerability after a successful defense, that's totally legitimate. It's not something that we're against. We just have to be careful on some of the details of the behavior, because we have to be careful with the way how that works. But definitely something we can look at, and then something that we could do without issue.
Question 3. How would introducing a new solar system affect your single shard technology?
Well, a new solar system wouldn't change the way the single shard works. It's just that it would most likely take you more time or more resource to go from one system to another. But from our point of view, and when I say our, I mean the server, it would most likely not change a thing. We might have, due to numerical issues with floating points, we might have to do some tricks to kind of implement the world continuity between the two. But as far as the single shot is concerned, from the point of view of the in-game player, it wouldn't make any difference.
Question 4. The Aegis market is cool to explore. Can we expect more NPC buildings and points of interest to explore in the game?
So first of all, super happy you like the space market. That was built by Shatari, and he would be very happy to know that you enjoyed finding all the nooks and crannies that he hid in there. As for the question of do we have other constructs coming? Yes, we do. In fact, for the next release, we have the Alioth Exchange coming up. This is our first try at trying to create a place where players can trade their own items instead of everybody being bound to the market. And we're gonna see how that goes. And obviously, there's a lot of room for expansion there. We're always building new constructs. That's kind of the job of the level design team.
Question 5. What is the future of safe zones?
For the foreseeable future, as of right now, going into this launch period and then thereafter, safe zones will essentially remain as they are. We don't anticipate any major changes to their placement or their behavior. Now, as we start into getting into much more future plans, as with anything, some things may change, but I guess what I will say is that any changes to safe zones will come with plenty of warnings and plenty of time to prepare and plenty of time to adapt. We know that that's important. We don't want to have people lose all their stuff on a patch one day where the safe zones are turned off, or whatever it might be. So so for the foreseeable future, right now, no changes, and if anything comes down the pipe eventually where some changes are necessary to safe zones, then we'll make sure to warn you guys plenty of time in advance.
And that wraps it up for this episode of Ask Aphelia. We hope you enjoyed it and found it informative. As always, if you have any gameplay questions that you would like to ask us, please use the form located in the link below. Until next time, Novians, and thank you for being part of our universe.